Hello and welcome to East Coast in Focus, the fourth season of Lights Camera Inclusion, a video series by the Canada Media Fund. This season takes us to beautiful Nova Scotia and New Brunswick, where producers and filmmakers are shaping powerful stories from the Atlantic provinces. Voices that often go underrepresented on the national stage. From Halifax to Moncton, we'll explore the realities of building a career away from Canada's largest screen industry hubs and what makes regional perspectives so vital. We'll also highlight the role of key festivals, like the Atlantic International Film Festival in Halifax, the Lunenburg Doc Fest, and FICFA in Moncton. Platforms that connect local stories with national and international audiences. So, what does it take to create authentic stories that are rooted here but still travel far and wide? Join me as we find out, along with some very inspiring voices from the East Coast. And to kick off this season, we are in Halifax at AIFF, the Atlantic International Film Festival, where the spotlight isn't only on the big screen, but also on the industry. The festival's signature program, AIFF Partners, is an international co-production market for feature films and television series, connecting creators with investors, building crucial partnerships, and developing the next wave of compelling projects, all against the backdrop of Atlantic Canada's maritime charm. Chrissy King Lopez is AIFF's industry director, and with her team, she has been preparing this year's Partners edition for months.
AIFF Partners is unique because we're small by design. In a world filled with large markets, we try to remain small with a boutique feel. We focus on maritime hospitality, matchmaking between producers and decision makers.
And what is the focus of this year's AIFF Partners edition?
So every 2 years at AIFF Partners, we switch our spotlight region. These regions focus on treaties that Canada has with other nations to bring forth successful co-productions. So this year, we're really excited to kick off the first year of a 2-year spotlight on the Nordics.
You were mentioning co-productions. I know AIFF has always been big on co-productions, international co-productions, maybe regional, interprovincial co-productions as well. Is that still very much a focus?
Absolutely. This is what we specialize in, allowing the folks that are looking for these co-production partners to meet in the beautiful setting of Nova Scotia and talk about their projects and find an appropriate co-production partner from around the world.
And why do you think delegates keep coming back?
I think it's the side conversations, honestly. We have so many unique networking opportunities here, from shuttles to and from the airport and our lobster dinner by the sea. Even if you don't have a speed meeting or a round table with someone, you're often going to run into them somewhere and have a side conversation that could lead to a successful partnership.
What is so specific about, Eastern storytelling?
Yeah, absolutely. I think co-productions have to have a creative element that is similar. So it's been fascinating to see over the years, working with regions like New Zealand and now the Nordics, how similar ocean-faring cultures and landscapes give birth to these ideas that are shared across different cultures.
And of course, festivals like AIFF don't exist in isolation. They are part of a bigger ecosystem, supporting screen creators here in the Atlantic. At the forefront of that work is Laura Churchill, president of Picture Newfoundland, who is definitely no stranger to the Partners event.
I mean, the one thing that AIFF does really, really well is work with new entrants into the film and television community and bolstering their projects and giving them a showcase and showing them off to the world. Also with their partners program and building those connections between producers and directors and writers looking for co-production opportunities, whether that's interprovincial, so within Canada, but also international. I think they do such a great job of providing those opportunities communities and making those connections. And also, it's a relaxed atmosphere.
And the industry is booming right now in Newfoundland. So what do you think lies behind that success, and how do we keep that momentum going?
I mean, there's a number of factors that are involved. I think at the very beginning, it has to do with the storytelling community. Newfoundland Labradorians are storytellers at heart. You put a bunch of us on an island and, we've got nothing else better to do but talk and spin a yarn. So I think that has a huge amount to it. I also think that our government has done a really great job of supporting the cultural industries in Newfoundland and Labrador. So that's also visual storytelling, plays and publishing, all of those things. And that support, given incentives, and then also training programs, has really helped bolster what we're doing here and primed the pump for where we are now. So we do about 100 million in production activity annually. So for a population of 500,000, we punch above our weight, we feel like. And that support is there to help grow the industry and truthfully put Newfoundland and Labrador stories, domestic stories, on screen, and specifically with television right now. There's 3 TV shows that are distinctly Newfoundland and Labrador: St. Pierre, Hudson and Rex, Son of a Critch. And I think investing in those stories and not putting all of our eggs in one basket with foreign service is really important. And that's what keeps our industry strong and sustainable.
Absolutely. And looking at the other side, what do you think are some challenges that are remaining for local creators?
Yeah, I think, the distribution landscape is very difficult. Broadcasters, obviously, there's less and less other funds and other interests. So it's really looking further and at other opportunities that might be there. But I think that is a huge struggle. I mean, our programs are generally economic based. So we're looking for outside investment. So how do we have creative ways to seeking out that investment and bringing more awareness to other investors that look to authentic stories from our province?
What do you think international co-productions, what role does it play in the long-term health and success of the industry in Newfoundland?
I think it's finding global partners that are like-minded, that can help in that storytelling process, and that can show off our region to their audiences, and the same for us to show off their region to Canadian audiences. And I think developing programs together and linkages is the thing that's going to set us apart, Canada specifically, from other regions and countries, with our co-production treaties, and the good work of CMF and Telefilm and connecting all of us, and festivals like AIFE. I think it's a real strong opportunity to be bringing our stories to the global stage.
The Canada Media Fund plays a central role in financing and supporting Canadian screen stories. At its helm is Valerie Creighton, the CMF's president and CEO.
It's always a joy for me to be back in Halifax. Being on the East Coast always renews me.
Hello, Valerie.
Hello, Gael.
Fancy seeing you here. You've been a regular at the Atlantic International Film Festival for a little bit. What do you find so unique and special about this festival in particular?
When a film festival is happening in a province or a territory, they bring their own flavor, they bring their own unique perspective, they bring their own creativity along with the world. And one of the fundamental reasons why I always attended in the past was the strategic partners role, because it was like bringing co-production potential creators from other countries, having the Canadian creators and that mix. And it was a very strong program for many, many years. Now it's a different iteration now, which is good. But that was one of the reasons I always came, because our interest was always in supporting co-production, and that particular mix being, the beauty of Atlantic Canada and this particular coast, along with the festival, along with strategic partners, made it a no-brainer to make sure we were involved.
Absolutely, and you're talking there about it's looking a little different now. I think there's a lot more focus on interprovincial co-productions, which is great.
It's very good, because I think we have to do 2 things in this environment. We can't stand on the 49th parallel and look up. I say that all the time. And we have to look towards other countries, and the provinces, the interrelationships between provinces in Canada is really important, because there's a sensibility, even though there's a very big difference between the Atlantic coast and the Pacific coast, but creators are creators. And the provinces are very good about their financial incentives and their tax credits, so it makes perfect sense. Producers, creators from each region have a particular skill in bringing forward what I would call the character, the humanity, issues going on in that particular region. In Atlantic Canada, obviously, the storytellers are unique in that way. They bring their humanity and their culture of the place of where they are to their content. And I think it's, we're so lucky at the CMF because we have the opportunity to actually be in front of creators all over the country and understand both what's going on in that region as well as the obstacles that the regions face when they're trying to do production. And it's a tough time for everyone right now. What gets me excited about the future is, yes, I think some things will change, other things will emerge, but storytelling will never stop. I mean, we were around the fire, thousands of years ago, keeping alive by telling each other stories. That it's a primal element of human beings. And I think finding a way to support that creativity is not only critical in these times, it's the thing that's going to save us, because it's the stories that tell us who we are as a country. It's the stories that fashion our identity. It's the storytelling that we take to the world that represents Canada. So I couldn't be more excited.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I was getting almost emotional. As part of the festival's industry segment, the Atlantic Filmmakers Cooperative, better known as AFCOOP, is opening its doors to the community. At their open house, staff and members welcomed visitors to explore year-round programs and workshops that support filmmakers at every stage of their careers. We met with Erica Moose-Sanders, AFCOOP's executive director, to chat about her priorities for the organization and her own creative journey. Hello, Erica.
Hi.
Very nice to see you.
Nice to see you too.
So you've been at the head of AFCOOP for 3 years now.
Yeah.
You're a filmmaker, you're a producer, a writer, and you have been active with the co-op for a long time before then. So
Yes.
what prompted you to step into the ED role?
Well, I worked at Screen Nova Scotia, which is the film commission here for a minute, like 4 years. And I've always been at AFCOOP since college, since NSCC. I've been a part of the board, I've been a part of the community. And at first I was like, I don't want to do this. This is going to be a lot of work. And I was like, who's going to take on the role though? So I was like, I think I can do it. And I also got encouragement from people in the community, say, apply. I'm like, and even after I had gone through the process of the interview, I was still undecided. But once I started the job, I started the job.
Could you tell me in a little more detail what kind of services AFCOOP provide to the filmmaker community?
AFCOOP is a community-based organization. We provide several things. We provide gear rental for filmmakers in the community. We also have classes throughout the year. We have a series of workshops, spring, fall, summer workshops. And we have our flagship program, Film 5, that's been running for almost 30 years now, where people are able to produce a short film, 5 minutes. They get funding from us, $10,000. They get about $20,000 to $30,000 in sponsorship, and they're able to make a film through our program.
And what priorities did you bring in your new position, and what did you identify as some remaining gaps for the filmmaker community in general?
For me, being from away, being a Black woman, not from here, inviting and opening spaces for like communities that are outside of the regular underrepresented communities. Well, when I came here 9 years ago, it was a totally different landscape. And trying to get into film, in film school at NSCC, there was me and my other friend from the Bahamas that were Black females. Outside of that, there were 1 or 2 people from the African Nova Scotian community, but there weren't a lot of faces like mine. But over the years, it's changed. It's like one person come and be like, we love Nova Scotia, we like this, and everybody flocks. So that has changed. But coming here, at first, it felt lonely. It was like, what's happening here? But, I met the community. When I say the community, I mean African Nova Scotian community, also the film community. So I found family and connection in both those things, and it started to feel like home.
How did your personal path, so you come from the Bahamas, as you mentioned, you were an immigrant. How does that shape your vision at the co-op and as a filmmaker in general?
It totally shapes my vision as a filmmaker. I come from an island in the Caribbean, a big empty island, Andros Island. I grew up in a shared family lot. People who instructed me most were my grandmother, my mother, and my aunts. So I come from strong matriarchs, and I want to see that reflected in my stories. It's hard for me not to reflect that in my stories. So they're women, they're a strong female lead. I want to see somebody of my color or coloring. I want somebody out with a diverse background outside of Nova Scotia, but also, you know, blending into the culture. So that totally shapes the kind of stories I want to see on screen. With my running of the co-op, for me, coming here, I didn't feel family initially, but now so for me, like, the cooperative, the people who I work with on a daily basis, I want to make sure that they feel like this is a safe space. This is family. So we treat each other like family. We have conversations, they have issues. Let's talk about it.
So you spend so much time with local filmmakers here. What do you feel? What is the feedback you're getting on the main barriers, obstacles that remain for regional filmmakers here in Nova Scotia?
Well, I mean, to make the first short film, the first or second short film is quite easy. You can do that through the co-op, Atlantic Filmmakers Cooperative. You can do that through CFAT. But once you've kind of made one or two short films, the barrier is getting on to the next big thing. So there's limited opportunity for grants, but also if you want to direct and write, it's not so hard because a producer, a seasoned producer can take you on. But if you want to get into the role of production, coming from short films is hard. Because you go and you apply for the grant, they'll be like, oh, you need to have done this thing, but you haven't done this thing. You haven't been greenlit for this thing. So right now, I see that as a barrier for a lot of filmmakers and a lot of producers trying to get from emergent or intermediate to a higher level and trying to figure out what that looks like for grant for filmmakers in the region. Yeah.
And talking about the region, in a market such as Halifax, which is away from the big hubs like Montreal, Toronto, Vancouver, it comes with some obstacles, of course. But do you feel that there's a higher sense of solidarity, of community?
Oh, when I came from Toronto here, I was because it's a smaller community, they're so much more vested and invested in you once they get to know you. And for me as a newcomer, you kind of have to take a little step outside of the box and be like, hey, I'm so-and-so.
Yeah, get outside of that comfort zone.
Right. But once you do that and people see that you're actually, serious about a thing, they judge you by your actions more so than anything else. And if they see that you're serious and if they see that you're invested in community, everybody comes forward.
Oh, that's really good to hear, Erica. Well, thank you so much for speaking to us. It's been great.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure having you folks here. And I so enjoy sharing bits about our community with you. Thank you.
This year at AIFE, filmmaker Stephanie Jolene moderated a panel during the Partners Industry Program, guiding conversations on the future of co-productions and collaboration. Known for telling bold, character-driven stories that challenge conventions, she told us about the progress that she's seen in the industry in the past years when it comes to representation and plurality of storytelling. Hello, Stephanie.
Hi.
Thank you so much for speaking with me today. So you have been based on the East Coast for a long time.
Yeah, I was born in Nova Scotia, so I've been
Right.
living here most of my life.
Yes, and you have profound roots here, Inuit and Acadian. I wanted to know, do you feel that you're able more and more to tell the stories that you want to tell in a way that feels genuine and honest to yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I'm in my early 40s, so I remember a time when I would watch TV and movies, and I certainly did not see a lot of representation, whether that's women or Indigenous people, or when you did see that representation, it was maybe a one-dimensional character.
Of course.
So I feel like I've seen a lot of progress that's been positive. And I mean, I remember when people wouldn't even go to a movie with a woman lead would be like, oh, it's a chick
Like a turn
flick.
off, yeah.
Yeah. And now it's like, obviously things have changed so much. So yeah, I think there's a lot more space people have made more space for more voices, and say what you want about like the different ways of seeing content now with the internet and streaming and everything. And I know that there's pros and cons. Some people will argue there's too much, like how can anything even be seen because there's too much out there. And although I see that point, I do think that is part of the reason why there's more room.
So Stephanie, what do you feel are some pros and cons of working here in Nova Scotia, a little away from the main industry hubs?
It does feel like the community here is really small. That's a pro and a con on its own too, right? In one way, everybody knows you, but in another way, everybody knows each other and everybody's pretty friendly. So I personally haven't felt like there's a lot of competition out here, and that's nice. I like living in a province and being part of a film community where it feels like we go to each other's screenings.
There's more support.
Yeah, and we kind of, and it feels like when something succeeds from here, we feel pretty proud because it's like, oh, that's our thing, or that's the show from here, or that's the movie that was shot here. And I like that feeling. I like that camaraderie. And we've all worked on each other's stuff, right? Like, hey, I'll volunteer on your thing. Do you want to volunteer on my thing? Like, that's how I started in the industry, just like working for free on my friends' short films, and they worked for free on mine, and then we all kind of developed those skills together. So I'm not saying that can't happen in a bigger hub, but it definitely feels like a small town thing that we do out here that I think is pretty positive.
And where do you feel, you were mentioning some changes, some progress earlier, where do you feel the industry stands right now on Indigenous voices and women's voices in film?
I think that there's been a lot of positive steps forward with, different government bodies and different organizations and different funding bodies, like everybody seems to be aware the last few years that Indigenous voices are voices that traditionally have gone unheard. I mean, we can go all the way back to like when our voices were literally illegal. Like, we couldn't speak the Indigenous languages, we couldn't play the Indigenous games, we couldn't tell stories the way it was, like literally illegal to do it. So obviously we've come far from that. But for a long time it wasn't illegal, but it certainly wasn't welcome. It seemed like, oh, that's a niche thing on a reserve or in a community that's not really part of us. Like, here we're in Canada and the Indigenous people are doing their thing. It feels like the last few years Canada has welcomed Indigenous people and really like championed those voices a lot more. And I mean, obviously that is so important. And I'm not even speaking like selfishly as in somebody with Indigenous roots who's might be benefited from that, but like, it's so important for the country. I mean, the more diversity we have in storytelling, the more people will feel seen and represented and look up on the screen or look behind the scenes and say, maybe I can do that. And then, more and more generations of storytellers.
So you mentioned earlier that, we've seen like a lot of progress in the past years, in the past decades even. Do you feel that it's a continuous wave? Do you feel some sort of backlash? Where are we right now?
I feel like with most progress throughout history, it's like 2 steps forward, 1 step back. It always, unfortunately, when you feel like you've we've made some progress somewhere, someone's not going to be happy about that. And then of course we can dig into the like psychology of why that is, and if there's a certain type of person that's sort of been in power for many, many years, and diversity or other voices or other priorities come into play, well, then that power is now threatened, right? So psychologically I can understand that. And then some people are like, well, I don't like this is all changing and I'm not sure how I feel about this diversity thing. I guess it's just like, to stay positive, I think I'll choose to stay positive. How about that? I'll say that, because it is better. Things are getting better. I think it's frustrating sometimes when you see that the backlash or the pushback against something that seems so obvious to me, like diversity, including different people's voices, different stories on screen. That's only going to make everything better. It only makes the country stronger and the industry stronger.
And Stephanie, I wanted to ask you, because I know you tackle difficult social themes in your productions, in your movies. How do you balance that complexity with what you think the audiences want to hear, will enjoy, or do you think that maybe we're underestimating the audiences and what they would like to watch? How do you feel about that balancing act?
I wish I could be one of those artists. Sometimes you hear these artists, and I'm using the word artist because they're very artsy, and they're like, I don't care what anyone thinks of my art, I'm gonna make it, and it's just, if I like it, that's all, and I put it out in the world, and who cares what they think? And I'm like, that's really cool. but I don't I don't know if I believe you, because if if I wanted to just make something in the basement and not show anybody, then maybe that's for me. But the fact that it's a medium that is made to share and try to connect with people, I think we do care about what the audiences think. I do try to balance that though and not care too much. Because caring too much and trying to people please and trying to please the masses, I mean, forget about it. So if it's like, well, I can't make everybody happy, so who am I trying to please? And then I'll just think of the audience for that thing.
We'll keep an eye on whatever comes out next from you.
Yes, please
Thank
do.
you so much for speaking to us, Stephanie, and we wish you all the best.
Thanks.